Welcome back to episode 4 of the Card Crunchers podcast. I nearly said episode 3 then. With me, Pokemike, and
King,
where we talk about all things trading card related. So, personally, I don't think too much has happened in the last week or so, but we still have topics and things to go over. I think maybe a good starting point for this episode is the Pokemon situation, Japanese prices versus the English prices being super cheap. Everyone's trying to buy out Japanese, and it's just insane in terms of the price points. So, yeah, I think we have an interesting take on this, and if you're looking to invest and things like that. So I know you brought this up, so I'll let you run with it.
So obviously, I guess I get quite a lot of people asking me from other card games what's good to invest in Pokemon. And a lot of people kind of look at the prices of the Japanese stuff and think, well, it's hot, so it must be popular. And of course, that is true. But generally, when you're speaking in terms of like investment, you don't really buy when things are going up. You generally want to sell then and buy when things are low. So one of the things that I was talking about really, because I had somebody kind of asking, what should I do with this X amount of money? And I mentioned Fusion Strike. So I asked him to list in the sets of, all the Sword and Shield sets, what he thought was good.
Yeah.
And he'd put Fusion Strike at the bottom with Chilling Reign, actually. And he put sets like Evolving Skies at the top.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that's just purely based on what's popular and what isn't.
Yeah.
But if anything, really, from my experience, especially with Black and White and like Emerging Powers and sets like that, especially like Steam Siege, for instance, Rebel Clash, every generation has it. I think generally what you should be buying a lot of the time is the least popular stuff, because we know with Pokemon, they reprint the most popular stuff. So a lot of the sets like Battle Styles, like Chilling Reign, Darkness Ablaze, they all had like reprints, and I know that a lot of the other sets kind of scaled a little bit more. So even though sets like Evolving Skies is really popular, and you've got like Brilliant Stars and Astral Radiance and Silver Tempest, Fusion Strike right now seems to me to be the best kind of pickup. It's one of the cheapest still. Obviously, a lot of the stuff happened, which we covered before about the print-ins of the stolen cards and such as that. That kind of adds to the sort of grey area of the cloud over Fusion Strike.
Which
generally, generally sets like that, which people talk about not buying, often seems to be the kind of the best thing to buy. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, even like you said with the temporary cloud that will be above Fusion Strike when that news came out. I remember when I heard that, my immediate reaction was, this would be a great time to buy Fusion Strike, because no one's going to want to buy it because of the stolen pools and things like that. So, I mean, in investing, it's normally always best to do what everyone else isn't doing, but it feels harder to do it, like, emotionally. So that is why naturally he's going to put Evolving Skies at the top. These are sets that are already proven to be popular because of their price point, but that's already happened. So I think a lot of it does come down to how long you're prepared to invest in it, because over time, Evolving Skies, in my opinion, will do well long term.
Yeah.
But the question is, could you buy that now and comfortably sit if it dropped 50% in price? Could you be happy to be like, yeah, I can hold through this and I will keep holding for years and years and years? Typically, I think the people that prioritize those sets and think they're going to keep going up and up and up are actually the ones who can't sit with those price drops and deal with it well, because otherwise I think they would have bought the sets that no one else is really buying, like you said, like Fusion Strike. And you've got so much low risk, in my opinion, buying those sets. They're basically at RRP, aren't they? I think Fusion Strike is.
Yeah.
No brainer, in my opinion. No brainer. I mean, it's Mew and Gengar on the box as well, on the artwork. Like, there's so many. I wish I was buying right now because I would just buy another case of it. In my opinion, I just think long
Yeah.
term it's an excellent buy, and that grey cloud will disappear 6 months down the line. I mean, I feel like it's already disappeared a little bit in my opinion. That news came out, it's fresh, but I mean, it's happened and gone already. Like no one's really talking about that anymore, and years down the line, I don't think anyone's going to remember it too well.
No, I don't think anybody will remember. I think there's Pokemon's and TCGs and the collectible industry is moving so quickly. So much news comes out that anything, even as big as it seems right in the moment, in a couple of weeks, even a couple of weeks, it kind of just sort of dissipates and goes. And I think,
Yeah,
as you said, a lot of the people that are going to be buying, and they probably list these sets like Evolving Skies, probably the same people that were trying to really invest in Shining Fates and Champion's Path when it was at its peaks.
yeah,
And I think, as you said, don't often buy what other people are buying. And the most popular thing is, I think, when you talk about anything really, you say, get the things that people aren't talking about. So I think, yeah, Fusion Strike, definitely. There are other sets around that as well. I think Chilling Reign as well. I know Chilling Reign started to rise already.
yeah,
But I think generally as well, like these sets don't have the training galleries as well. So that, and we only kind of introduced with the training gallery. We had it in obviously Cosmic Eclipse and then the later Sword and Shield sets. But for a while that wasn't the norm. So I think, yeah, those kind of sets are going to be the ones that people look sort of down on. Evolving Skies, yeah, as you said, it will continue to go up. But if you can buy 3 boxes of Fusion Strike for the price of 1 box of Evolving Skies, if Evolving Skies goes to 500 and Fusion Strikes goes to 300, if you've got, I would rather have 6 boxes of Fusion Strike that move up to 300 than 2 boxes of Evolving
yeah,
Skies that move up to 500 each. It just, it seems like a no-brainer, honestly. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. As you said, I wish I was actively buying
yeah,
Pokemon right now, because I have got some Fusion Strike. I haven't got a massive sort of position in it, honestly. You have a case, don't you? So
yeah. I
you have
had
more
that.
than I do.
Yeah, I had that
Um,
from release.
yeah,
But I've got the trainer gallery sets. I've got nearly all of the sets from Sword and Shield in a case. So
yeah,
um, yeah, and I mean all the attention's on Japanese right now as well. So not
yeah,
only is there the cloud of the stolen pools, but the fact like I actively see people saying at the moment that English is a waste of money. Japanese,
yeah,
like it's just there's so many like signals, I guess, in investing to be like buy English sealed right now because no one's doing it. And yeah, unfortunately, I'm not in the market to be doing that at the moment. But yeah, it couldn't look more attractive from my point of view, to be honest.
yeah. I agree on that one. It's definitely one of the best things you can be doing right now if you want to sort of put a little bit of money into it. And historically, every single Pokemon set has gone up over
Yeah,
time. You give it 12 to 24 months, there's not a set from 24 months ago. I looked at Ultra Prism, which was a set that people really hated for a while. I've got a box of that and then some other bits of that. They're about £350 a box now. So
jeez.
it shows,
Yeah,
Forbidden Light is over 250 now, and that's again, I couldn't even tell you what was in that.
yeah,
Oh, I think Forbidden Light was a rubber. Those they had like the Cosmos and stuff. They weren't great sets,
yeah,
honestly. But yeah, so and that's they've got very little going for them. And Fusion Strike, as you said, has Mew and Gengar as well.
yeah.
So
It does baffle me a little bit. You've got 2 Gen 1 huge popular Pokemon on it, but yeah, I mean, time will tell. I mean, it's pretty much RRP and it will go up over time. So yeah, it seems like a great purchase to pick up. Has anything been going on with Flesh and Blood recently?
yeah, there's always stuff going on in Flesh and Blood. So they did a lot of announcements for the From Dusk Till Dawn set. So they've announced They've announced serialized cards, art sketches. So they're going to do it slightly different than what other TCGs have done. They are hand drawn sketch cards, and there's going to be 10 of each hero of the new Prism and the new Broomblade hero. So that'll be interesting to see. That's got people talking. That's obviously a lot of people now hyping up a lot of the stuff from Monarch, because it's going to be a trilogy set now. So it's going to be called War with the Monarch, and it is 3 sets that they're going to make now.
So that's like 3 sets related to Monarch being the first one of like kind of like an era in Pokemon, I guess. Is that right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
but it'll be set. Obviously, Monarch came out in 2020, and then we're going to have 2020 or 2021, 2021, and then we're going to have then this From Dusk Till Dawn, and there'll be a future set at some point. So they're really kind of tying in. Obviously, it's all to do with the lore as well. So if you're really into lore as well, that kind of adds to it, because it is continuing, and that has meant a lot of people now spec in. So some of these cards, there's first edition Majestic foils that are now over $100 each.
Yeah,
it's mad. It's a set that, I mean, at its lowest, Monarch boxes were £70 for first edition.
Yeah,
I remember talking about it a lot, saying it seemed like a great buy. It was too cheap. Like, it was a case of one of those that it went super high and then it crashed, and it crashed real hard. So obviously people didn't want to touch it, but you
got to do what everyone else isn't doing. That's like it's always
exactly.
the case.
That's the thing.
Like,
and now, I mean, there are a lot of people, not a lot. There were a few people talking about buying Monarch. That sort of, like Salty Whale was saying about it for a while. He's been buying for a long time.
Yeah.
And the people like that, fortune favors the bold, and buying things when people are telling you that it's rubbish is, as we've talked about this before, it's even more motivation for me to buy. So it'll be interesting to see. I think Monarch is one of the sets that I have the largest position of. So it will be very interesting to see where those boxes go now.
Was that just because you bought so much when it was cheap? Is that why you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I bought a lot, and I traded a lot of Pokemon for it as well. So everybody was just kind of, they were almost chucking it at me because they just didn't want it.
Yeah.
And I was more than happy to, I've been very public with all my purchases over the years in Flesh and Blood. I've put it, on my Instagram. I've talked about it in group chats, and so, it's I'm never really been secretive of sort of what I've been buying, in the hopes that other people look at that and sort of learn something from it, really. But Flesh and Blood is, things are doing well. I know recently they have announced that they're not going to be doing. So with a couple of heroes in the recent sets, they did a rainbow foil version, a cold foil version, and a Marvel cold foil version. And a lot of people didn't like the fact there were 3 versions, because a lot of them, like the Emperor, for instance, the Marvel cold foil was about $800. The normal cold foil is less than $100, and the rainbow foil is like $15.
Yeah.
So it seemed pointless to have a cold foil in the middle, really. That's what a lot of people. But Saint from Fabled Hunters said that he has it on good authority, which most probably means that he's spoken to LSS directly to say that isn't the case anymore. So that's good news. They're kind of listening to the players and the collectors, which is really great to hear.
Yeah.
And they had I think it was the largest turnout for any Flesh and Blood event, which was in Baltimore the weekend before last.
Yeah.
So that was massive. All the big names were there. So it was great to kind of see that the game is growing on a player base level as well as a collector base.
Yeah. All positive news then, really, that they're doing, sort of listening to people and feedback, and that it's growing from all angles, not just one. So I mean, that sounds like it's going really well. I just want to touch back on something you mentioned. So you obviously mentioned they're doing serialized cards.
Yeah.
Is that is it like 1 to 10? Obviously, I only know of serialized cards in terms of Weiss Schwarz. They do like 1 to 10 numbers.
Yeah.
Is it the same sort of format?
It'll be 1 to 10. I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah, they'll be hand drawn. Oh, I'll just knock the camera there. They'll be hand drawn by the artists. They'll be cold foil and signed. And yeah, they've announced already, I think, kind of how it's going to be distributed, because obviously a lot of the conversation is how are people going to get these? Obviously, there's different printing factories, in Europe and in
Yeah.
Japan as well. So we have Belgium, Japan. So how are they going to kind of distribute it? And I think what they've said is it's going to be basically scaled on the player base. So if there's more players in the certain area, they'll get a higher percentage,
Oh, okay.
basically. So it's going to be as fair as it possibly can, honestly. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, they're going to be ridiculously hard to pull.
Yes.
Um, yeah, as you know, serialized cards
Yeah.
from Weiss already. I know Magic the Gathering, they've gone crazy with serialized cards now. Like that market. I thought Weiss Schwarz serial cards were like mad, but I think Magic's just sort of said, "Hold my beer" with this, and they're printing like multiple serialized cards, and they're all like out of 500.
Oh,
Um,
that's a lot.
yes,
Yeah.
there is, but you think how big Magic is
Yeah.
compared to White.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so it's just mad. They basically choose I think the most popular like legendary planewalkers and characters, and they basically do like specific. It's like a special art for them as well. So generally with Magic the Gathering, they'll do like a normal card, they'll do like an extended art card, like a
Yeah.
showcase, and they'll do like a collector's edition version, and then they've got the serialized as well, which can only be bought in collector's packs as well. You can't get it in the set or draft packs.
Oh, okay.
So already you've got to spend at least £25 a booster
Yeah.
to have a shot. And I bought a pack just because I do it anyway for every Magic the Gathering set. But yeah, I've seen one of them, which was an Atraxa, which is one of the most popular playable heroes. That was the 001 out of 500, and
Yeah.
that was over $5,000 on bids on Facebook.
That ended, or was that ended at
No,
5,000?
it's still
Yeah,
going
still
now.
going. Yeah.
So I haven't checked it this morning. That was last night.
Yeah.
So it was going up in 500 increments.
Yeah.
I think that was what the bidding thing was on there. It was you can only bid in $500 increments.
Yeah. Yeah.
So which is
Yeah.
mad. Obviously, I know like the Asuna, 1 out of 10 is probably one. I think probably the most expensive serialized that I've seen anywhere. Is that the case? Do you know?
I think so. I haven't really followed any of those serial cards in a while. I'd be interested actually to look back, because I know the first ever Weiss Schwarz serialized card was a set based on like a real life idol band or something. There is a video
Okay.
on YouTube of someone opening it. But that was like the first time they ever did serial. So I think that was like a really big deal, because obviously it was the
Yeah.
first ones. But also, I don't know how many people collect that set and those cards, so it's like a really weird one of might not actually be worth that much. But yeah, for modern serial cards, I think you're right. I think it's probably one of the Sword Art Online
Yeah.
cards. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, serials, obviously, we know that the One Ring is going to be big in the new Lord of the Rings set that comes out in June. I think, that there is a place for them, obviously, in card games. I know that sports cards have been doing them for years.
Yeah.
So it feels like a natural sort of, if you look at sports cards, you kind of look at a lot of things that TCGs copy from
Yeah.
sports cards. And it feels like a natural sort of transition. You look at, I know I was watching that Golden series, and they were talking about a Michael Jordan card, and straight out it was like 1 of 1, and it had patches. It had the NBA logo patches from the 3 teams he won the championship with. I don't know anything really about basketball, but they'd obviously cut it out and put it onto this card, and it has his signature on it.
Yeah.
And straight out the bat, it was bought for over $1 million. Well, it wasn't bought. It was Golden had basically put a down payment on to be able to list it on Golden auctions.
Yeah.
And I think it sold for Drake. I know was interested in it. I think it sold for a couple of million, which is that I think is the biggest like modern card like hunt in history. I
Yeah.
think it's very easy when we talk about Pokemon and Weiss and Magic the Gathering and Flesh and Blood. They get kind of sort of absorbed into that bubble. But when you go look at the sports cards and you see cards that have been selling for millions for years,
Yeah.
it's a whole nother game. And I
It
think
is, yeah.
it's definitely something that I kind of want to learn more about, that I think could help me with my going forward in TCGs.
Yeah, I think there's probably loads to learn given that it quite often sets a standard for others to follow. And it is, in terms of price, investment side of things, one of the most expensive ones out there. So, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Like, potentially you could probably learn a lot from looking and watching it, even if you're not going to collect it, open it, or do anything with it. Just that perspective would be useful to transfer over, I'd imagine. It's not something I've ever looked into or collected. Have you finished the series on Netflix, by the way? I still haven't started it. I'll try and start it soon.
No, I've got one episode left, I think.
Okay.
It's a very good. I would recommend. I mentioned it to a couple of people, but I would highly recommend anybody. A lot of people have said it's over the top. It's very American. I'm not going to deny all that, but if you are generally interested in collectibles, whether it be card games or comics or anything, generally memorabilia, I highly recommend watching it because it gives you an insight into what happens behind the scenes. It also shows you the scale of just how large the collectibles industry is.
Yeah.
I know I had a few people say, "Oh, I didn't like it because it was too much about money and stuff," and I do get that. I think that seems to be the sentiment from a lot of people in card games right now. I think a lot of people are having a hard time adjusting to money being involved in card games.
Yeah, it's hard because the thing is, you have to remember that I mean, I know I haven't watched it, but you have to remember that show is targeted towards the average person. And the average person would probably enjoy learning a bit about the process, learning how rare something is, but what gives them the most shock value is the price. So like that card you mentioned is a new card that's just come out, fairly modern, but instantly is like £1 million or $1 million or whatever. That for people, that is just entertaining for the average person to watch and learn. And they're like, oh my god, like how is that possible? That is insane. Like it just blows their mind. So yeah, I think sometimes you have to remember some content is targeted towards the average person. And I did think that when I saw the show come out, I did think, am I going to enjoy this because I might know a lot of it and it might be sort of dumbed down in terms of like my knowledge versus the average person's knowledge. But I mean, everyone who I've spoke to who have watched it does enjoy it. So I definitely will be putting it on soon. And actually going back to that card that you mentioned with the NBA card. So do you think that when they do things like that, it's almost like each year or each set, they always of course try to better it and top it and make something, it's natural progression, right? You always want to make a better set or better cards that look nicer. The fact that it came out and is worth like $1 million already, someone wants to put in a bid for $1 million or auction it for that. Do you think long term they start to lose value because next year they top it with something else? And then suddenly, the people that wanted that, they're not that interested. They're now looking at this new crazy thing, which is even rarer and got some of his underwear stuck to the card or something.
Very good question. And I suppose a lot of people, I have seen that conversation being had in Discords hundreds of times by people about other TCGs.
Okay.
I would say no. I would say the collector base is so large, and the people that are going to be bidding 1 million on a card, they are people like Drake. They're multi-millionaires, they're billionaires, they're people that, they could release a one of one every single year, and it could go in 5 million increments, and they'd still be interested. I think people like me and you aren't buying £1 million cards. Anyway, maybe one day, maybe Weiss and Flesh and Blood actually massively takes off. But so it's not for us really. So
I suppose
it's easy, I guess. It's a good conversation to have because debating anything really is really interesting. I love this. These are the conversations that I really enjoy having. I've had these conversations hundreds of times, and I'll always enjoy them because everybody has a different experience and kind of different viewpoint, and it's good to see. No one's right or wrong, I think, with this but I think they can keep scaling up, and I don't think it's every year that they bring out mad cards like this. Like there's always patch cards, but that's something that TCGs haven't explored. I don't know how you could do that honestly with TCGs because they're not all like real people. I know, but obviously we've got signature cards, we've got serialized cards, and they've both been borrowed from sports cards. So who knows what could happen next? Maybe we get a signed one Arita card, and inside is a piece of paper where he did a drawing of the first, an old drawing sketch of like a Pikachu card or a Charizard, and it's inside the card. That is the kind of card for me that I'd be looking at and going, that's an easy 1 million. All day long. You see the prices that sell for some of these cards, and there's no like physical sort of value to them as such. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing inside that card other than it being at that card. First edition base set Charizard, is one of the most expensive. It's the most expensive English card anyway. You look at that, and that's worth the money it is because it's very old, it's very rare, and it's very sort of emotionally attached because people know that. But if you had the original drawing of a Charizard by Arita and signed by Arita on that very same card, it changes things. So it'll be interesting to see where the hobby goes, specifically like Pokemon, because Pokemon seems to be the one that doesn't want to get carried away with a lot. I know they do the alt arts, but as far as I'm aware, they're one of the only TCGs that haven't done serialized cards now or sold signed cards themselves.
Yeah, it's interesting now that you say that. They haven't done signatures. There's clearly has been for a while a huge demand for the artist signatures, but they could have easily done that when that has started to boom. They could have gone, let's do a set of signatures, let's just do it. They haven't done that. They haven't done serial cards. It's very interesting. They are one of the few TCGs to sort of stick to that, and I feel like actually it says a lot that they can still do so well without having to incorporate that into their cards. And I do think a lot of people in the Pokemon community would absolutely hate if they did signed cards. Despite the not even taking into account the people that just try to flip signed cards for money. I'm just talking about the average collector who doesn't care money wise and just likes collecting them. I think they wouldn't actually like them doing signed cards or serialized cards, which is it's extremely unique for a TCG, really. Do you think they'll ever do them?
That's a good question. I honestly don't know. I think Pokemon's approach to things is very different. I mean, you look at the 151 set, they're very much about their kind of key point is they've got their core characters. They obviously release new characters, but they know that it's tied to the franchise, so they can keep reprinting. I mean, every couple of years now, they do a reprint set of these old cards, and people buy it up, of course, because people love these characters. They do brand new art sometimes, a different foiling of the card, and people like that, and it doesn't ever take away from the value of the original cards, which is something that a lot of people talked about when Evolutions came out, for instance. Would it, and also we had celebrations as well. So I don't know. I don't think they'll ever do serialized. Honestly, I can't see that happening. Perhaps they'll do some signed cards, but they won't be English release. There'll be maybe Japanese trophy cards, perhaps. That would be a good way of doing it because it's already a card that the average person isn't holding anyway. So they possibly could have. I don't know. It would be interesting to see what they do. But as you said, I don't think it would go down well with
No.
Pokemon. There's already a kind of small divide between the investor slash collector slash player already. I don't think it needs that, honestly. I
Yeah.
think Pokemon's doing a really good job of what they're doing right now. I think bar the Japanese stuff, obviously, which we know, but the cards themselves are fantastic. Every set that comes out, I find cards in that set, and I think they look really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in Weiss Schwarz with the cereals, I do think they are releasing a bit too many. Like, obviously, they had the issues with not being able to get signatures for a lot of sets for a period of time. And I think for every set that they just did stamps where they couldn't get them, they did just slap the cereals on. And I do think when it comes to something like that, obviously Weiss is small, let's be honest. It is a niche TCG. And I think if they did cereals once or twice a year, it would be more fun and go down.
Yeah,
I just think it would be better as a whole for everyone. But yeah, I think in terms of Pokemon and cereals, for some reason it seems like more of an adult thing. Like, I don't know
yeah,
if that's because Pokemon just haven't done it, so it's like, oh, it's just the more adult TCGs that do that kind of thing. But yeah, it just doesn't seem like their vibe for some reason, does it? It's hard to picture, but maybe it's just because they've not done it before. I don't know.
yeah. It doesn't seem like that's the way they're going, and
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see what happens. As I said, like I'm interested to see if new card games like Lorcana try to jump on serialized cards early.
yeah. I mean, that's interesting because I mean, it's Disney, so it does have a very childlike feel to it.
Yeah,
And I just said I couldn't picture it in a in a more of a childlike TCG. But I mean, personally, I think they will do it. I think if you're a new TCG, it kind of feels like you do that to attract some growth.
yeah,
It attracts a certain type of people to buy the cards and share those cards. So it does attract sort of collectors and investors into your TCG that may not have come to it otherwise. So yeah,
yeah,
I think they probably would. I wouldn't be surprised if they adopt that early on. That's for sure.
yeah. I would agree. I don't think it'd be something that would surprise me. I think um, Lorcana is definitely a very hyped and talked about TCG. I think I was having conversations actually last night with people where people were they said that they think that Lorcana could be the first TCG to overtake Pokemon in America. Um,
Not a
I
chance.
know we had
It's
this
just it's not.
conversation. We both disagreed. Obviously, there's a numerous reasons as to why we don't think. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with anything really.
No.
The 4 points people were saying was Disney's massive. They're going to put the full weight of their sort of IP, which is something I actually disagree with. So Pokemon own the rights to the IP and stuff, but Ravensburger are the actual ones making it. They're the ones that are advertising it. They're the ones that are doing the events. So they're the ones that are going to be the reason why it succeeds or fails. Honestly, this is their first TCG. They've just announced at Gen Con in Indianapolis in August that it will be the first official Lorcana tournament, which is they've with most TCGs, they generally have like small tournaments at card stores before they go to a big event. But Lorcana's just gone, right. You know, I mean, the card game comes out, I believe, in the summer. So as soon as it comes out, pretty much they're going to go, right, we're going to Gen Con, which is the largest tabletop and board game convention in America. And I know that TCGs have had presences there before. Pokemon have famously been at Gen Con a lot. I own some Gen Con Pokemon promo cards actually from like 2005 and 6, which is quite cool. But it's a big move and seems very bold to go straight into Gen Con for their first tournament. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it seems silly when I hear and saw some of those videos and those comments about it taking Pokemon's spot. It's almost to the point where I'm like, it's not even worth like trying to have that conversation with that person. Like there's so many reasons as to why it won't. And obviously, you did say like anything can happen, and I know that is the case. But realistically, we can make very good, educated guesses based on information that we know. I mean, Pokemon's has been and is still, I'm pretty sure, the biggest franchise in the world. So already, no. Like just based off of that, no. Let alone all of the fundamentals that these people just aren't considering. They're just seeing the Disney IP and they're going, oh my god. But just there's so many reasons. I mean, even if it was called, like in my opinion, the fact it's called Lorcana takes a little bit away from the Disney IP, because people will be saying, maybe they'll say Disney Lorcana, but if it was like the Disney TCG, that would almost hold more weight to the average person to know what they're getting into. And if you can't attract the average person into your TCG, even if it is Disney, like to the average person, it sounds like a subset. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Disney Lorcana, you're like, what's that? I don't know. Obviously, it's something to do with Disney, but who knows? But yeah, I just think there's like literally so many reasons as to why that won't be the case. I think a lot of the people getting into this set are adults, which I know Pokemon is very similar. Let's be honest, like a lot of adults collect Pokemon. And it would be really interesting to actually know the difference in terms of like age groups collecting it. But I know loads of kids still collect Pokemon cards. Like my nephews collect it. Do I see them collecting Disney Lorcana? Do I see that going round in schools like Pokemon cards used to when we were younger? Don't know. Maybe it would for a week, if that. Like there's just too much there to say it's not going to take the spot. It's just not.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and that's a good point actually. Do you see it in playgrounds and kids playing? Because that's really how most card games like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Really, and Digimon, that's how that all started for us. I've noticed with a lot of the new TCGs coming out and that their focus point is North American market, and they kind of almost forget about the rest of the world. Whereas Pokemon did a very good job at marketing itself globally.
Yeah.
There wasn't a corner of this world when Pokemon came out, you didn't know about it. And even Yu-Gi-Oh! To the extent, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a massive release when it first came out. Obviously, Ed started the anime series, as did Pokemon before, so you already had people that were interested in it.
Yeah.
Now, Disney has its own characters and IP. I know that a lot of people were talking about Disney adults. Disney adults are absolutely crazy and mental. They'll spend thousands of pounds on Disney products. So maybe, but all the D23 promos that they did that are worth thousands now. Who owns those cards? They're investors and collectors. They're not players. They're investors and collectors. How many of the people that own those cards are going to be interested in playing the game? Probably very few. Most of them are people that went, Disney's coming out, right? I need to be there early. I need to park my money in there. I need to get the cards graded. I need to have them in the 10. and I'm just going to sit on them and see what happens. So, and that'll be the case for a lot of people buying the boxes as well. So I believe they're not doing a first edition release for Lorcana. They're just doing a set release. So there won't be a a first edition stamp on it to say I'm the first person to own these boxes. I'm sure they'll do different prints. And with any card game, when they do different prints, there's a slight variation on the colouring or the text, perhaps. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see that. As we talked about, I'm going to get some Lorcana because I love Disney and I really like the design of the cards. Like, I've been very public about, kind of settling down the hype a little bit for this card game because I've seen this happen with MetaZoo. I've seen it happen with Korra, with Flesh and Blood. When you hype things up too much, they can never reach those levels and it just comes crashing down.
Yeah.
So I think if we want Lorcana to survive and continue when it comes out, don't hype the set up too much because by the third set, those boxes will be $40 on the market.
Yeah.
But yeah, will you be picking some of the Lorcana up?
Yeah, I'll probably just get a box to open, like just out of pure curiosity. It's always fun just opening any sort of TCG, especially when it's a new one as well. You're just trying it out, you're looking at the cards, checking the quality, seeing what the holos are like and things like that. It is always really fun. But yeah, I mean, some great points there. Like, I didn't even touch on any of the playability factor that comes into a TCG being successful, and that is a huge part of it. And the fact that it's a company that don't have experience in actually making a trading card game, as far as I'm aware, or they may have done one before or something. I can't remember now, actually. They made any?
I don't think they've made one. Yeah, from what I understand, they've not made one before. No.
Which is another that is another sort of flag to be like, well, no one actually knows how the playability side of things are going to turn out, and if it doesn't turn out well, how's it going to do? It's probably not going to do that well because all you have is collectors and investors trying to make profit on cards, which, like you said, if it goes crazy, it will just come down. It's only a matter of time. It happens in everything. The 2020 boom in Pokemon, prices went up 5 to 10 times in value. They came back down to about 50% in value. Like, that quick growth is never sustainable. It will bounce back down if it's too fast. Like, it's just because too many people see the quick returns. Same as the Evolving Skies, like we mentioned earlier. People see the growth and they think it will just keep going. Oh, it's so popular, its price is so high, it's just going to keep going up. But you've missed it. You've missed that growth. You're going to buy it. Yeah, it might go up a little bit more. It could go up another 2 times. But potentially you've missed the growth and you could be buying right at the top and it could just crash. And eventually it will come down to at some point if it has growth way too fast. But yeah, I'm still excited for the set itself. Like, still excited to try and just get one box and open it. Like, I had Disney 100 Weiss Schwarz. That was fun. I do like Disney. I do. Personally, one of my favorite sort of franchises is Kingdom Hearts, and I feel like you're a bit familiar with it. So obviously it features Disney World and tons of Disney characters, and that is why I liked Disney 100, and that's probably most of the reason why I recognize a lot of the characters and still remember their names, because I only played Kingdom Hearts 3 and the latest game that came out for Switch. It was like a music game, but because I play them, like, I stay kind of up to date with like Disney characters and things like that and don't just forget them from the 90s. So for me, I do like Disney because of that sort of connection that I have from there. So yeah, I'll definitely open one. I can't remember when the release date was, but I just need to make sure I buy one. But if there's not a first edition print run, it's probably, I'd imagine it might be quite easy to pick these up. It's not going to be difficult to find if they're just doing a normal set release.
No, I don't think it will be at all.
So I think actually that is potentially all I sort of had down for today, unless you had any other topics that you wanted to
No,
go
that
into?
was it. That's all I had.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm going to ask you now your hot take because you did the same for me last video.
Yeah.
So, what is your hot take this week?
My hot take this week. How are we going to keep this up? I think I'm actually going to do a video about this shortly, but I think that investing in Weiss Schwarz is an unnecessary risk. I think it's too risky. I don't think it's worth it, and I'm mainly talking about sealed rather than raw cards. Yeah, mainly sort of investing in sealed Weiss Schwarz. Don't bother. Don't bother.
Okay, really? Why is that?
Because of the IPs, because of the different IPs, it's extremely hard to navigate.
Yeah,
Essentially, to do it successfully, if you've got like a 3 to 5 year term plan, I think investing in sealed Weiss Schwarz is too tricky, from the sense that for it to do well, you need to, well, for starters, you need to buy a case. Let's just get that out there. You need to buy a
yeah,
whole case. If you don't buy a case and you've got loose boxes, as nice as they look, people will assume that they are dead boxes when it comes to selling them on. Now, that already makes the entry price quite high. You're looking at £1,000 retail price for a case of a set. So that's, can be difficult. People might not even be able to afford that. Besides that, you have to pick an IP that you think will have a low print run and that there isn't demand for, which means you're essentially buying an IP that's unpopular at the time of release, which is quite unlikely. Let's be honest, they don't want to make unpopular sets.
yeah,
It doesn't really make sense. But occasionally, yeah, you might find one. And then you want that IP to actually do well in the next few years. So you want that to go from like a boring IP that no one wanted to, oh, but it's gotten really good and now there's loads of demand for it.
yeah.
But we're also not going to do another set and we won't reprint the old one. So like, you also need to rely and hope that they don't reprint it. I mean, some reprints have different signatures. Attack on Titan had the same signatures, so again, there's a risk of a reprint where they just completely reprint like for like. So you have to hope that that also doesn't happen, and you have to hope long term that that demand and that popularity stays there for that IP, and that 10 years down the line people don't start clowning on it, which is very common in the anime community. It's a very hot take. No, it's not even a hot take now. It used to be a hot take, and now all I see is everyone saying the same thing, that like Attack on Titan is actually a rubbish anime. Like Joey the Anime Man did a video literally about a month ago, like interviewing people in Japan on the street, saying like, oh, what's your hot anime take? In this like 10 to 15 minute video, there was like 5 people that said, oh, Attack on Titan's actually really rubbish. And it's like, it's now the popular opinion to hate on like these popular shows. And I know you're a big fan of Sword Art Online, and I know it gets for the last few years, it's gotten the same sort of opinion.
Yeah.
When it came out, everyone absolutely loved Sword Art Online. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, now everyone loves to completely shit on Sword Art Online. And I don't know if that's just because I don't know if that's just because time has moved on and anime in general, in terms of series, is better from a story and animation sort of like production, and people just compare it to the latest season of the hottest anime and they're like, oh, it's rubbish now. But at the time it was super popular, so you could pick an IP in Weiss Schwarz just like that. And actually it's interesting that Sword Art Online has still continued to do well, in my opinion, in Weiss Schwarz, despite the amount of hate that it does sometimes get. I feel like it's done well from a perspective where everyone has kind of just gone, we like this as a Weiss Schwarz set, despite like what people
Everyone
think.
seems to like it as a set, but not an anime. I think
Yeah.
probably reason why is a lot of the core fan base, I guess, like myself, are the ones buying these cards, and they've obviously got the opportunity now to buy, these SPs and such. But I think, yeah, that's a really good take, actually. I mean, I've never really thought about it as you've got like 100 hurdles there, really. You've got to jump through,
Yes. Yeah.
and the way when you say it like that, I know we talk about to buy things that people don't say to buy, but that many
Yeah.
hurdles, it almost feels like it's almost impossible to kind of sort of know what to do. And I think, as you said, yeah, like with anything, obviously anything we discuss in these videos is only our opinions. It's
Yeah.
you know,
Don't take
and
financial advice from us legally.
yeah, don't take financial advice from either of us. Obviously, we buy for our collections and for our sort of, when we said about this podcast, we did want to make sure that we are also talking about not just news, but markets and
Yeah.
investments, because there's going to be a big variety. A lot of the people that watch my content on YouTube are watching because they want to know about investments and the way markets are moving in flesh and blood. So I think, we won't make that the highlight of every single video, but it's definitely something that people are interested in. But yeah, take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, do your own research, kind of learn about it more. Use this as a jumping point to kind of look into. Okay, so Mike has said that about Weiss. Well, I'm going to now have a look at my own and kind of explore what Weiss is and kind of how these things are sort of playing out, really. But if there's nothing else, I guess we can end with what we want to do going forward is kind of answer more questions in these videos. It gives us good talking points as well. So if you've got any absolute questions about anything we've talked about in this video or anything that you've been thinking about for a while that you kind of don't know the answer to, drop a comment below. Next video, we'll go through some of the comments and answer those. We'll try to answer as many as we can. If we get more than a couple, we're not
Yeah.
we're not gonna get more than a couple for now, but we'll try to answer them as many as we can. But that's it from us, and thank you. Have a good day and enjoy.
Yeah. We'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.